Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I've got my dear friend Russell Brunson. I've known Russell for about 15 years, 14, 15 years now. I've got to know him really well over the last decade or so. And what I love about Russell is, so many people are looking for ways to maximize their business or to find a way to produce a secondary income. And most of the stuff that you see online is disappointing would be the nicest word I could give for it. There's so many scams, there's so much BS. And what I love about Russell, and the reason I wanted to introduce you to briefly today, is he has a new book out called Seccrets. The subtitle is Help You to Find Your Message, Build a Tribe, and Change the World. He just hold that up so we all see that.
There it is.
There you go. And it just, what I love about Russell is just, he's the real thing. He's got real integrity. So Russell, before we go into some questions about the book, for my audience here who's looking to figure out how to maximize their business, most of my audience is somebody who owns a business and want to take it to the next level. And then there's other people that, operate, they work for somebody else, but they might be able to create a secondary income on the side, but they don't want the typical scam that, obviously doesn't add value. My philosophy, and I know you live by the same thing, is the secret to success in business is do more for others than anybody else is doing, add more value, not the value you want to give, the value they really need. Why don't you share with my audience a little bit here about how you got started in this business and a little bit of your approach to it, how it differs from so many other people out there.
Yeah, so I actually got started in this business, feels like yesterday, but it's been, 10, 15 years now. And it's funny because I was the same way a lot of people were. I didn't know a lot about business. I was trying different things and learning from different mentors. And one of the very first things I ever created, in fact, I sent you the first one I made actually, was a potato gun. And we were making those for fun. And we had so much fun making potato guns and shooting them and having just like the time of our life. And then one day I had the idea, I wonder if anyone else besides me is interested in information about potato guns. And there was nobody else selling any plans or DVDs or anything. And so I thought, there's my first opportunity. I'm going to become a potato gun expert. And we went and made a potato gun DVD. My friend and I recorded it, put it online, and started selling it. And it never made me rich, but it was the first thing I sold online. We started making $20 or $30 a day. And it was like the coolest thing in the world. And to see people take what you knew and actually do something with it. And that's, for me, how it began. And then obviously I didn't want my rest of my life to be known as a potato gun expert. As much fun as that is, and I'm still into that business or into that hobby. But that's how it kind of began. And then I started branching out, and kind of my next steps, I started finding other people who were really good. And I was like, man, these one of my friends, I don't know if you know Howard Berg now, world's fastest reader. We partnered with him, and I was like, you're the world's fastest. Let's create information selling what you do. And we did projects together selling his information and other people's. And I started getting obsessed with helping other people to take what they knew and what they were good at and put it out there and sell it, and it just became a passion, a hobby of mine. And then now in the most recent years, obviously we've been teaching a lot of people doing that. We've got software that helps people with it, but that's kind of the backstory.
Well, you've grown so massively. Haven't you serviced almost 1 million business owners over the last 10 years?
Yeah, we've been over that now. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then you've created ClickFunnels. We'll talk about it as well. But tell me about how do you differentiate yourself from so many people online. Everybody on the line jumps online. Everybody's got some hook that they're trying to use to sell somebody something. You really differentiated yourself, I found, over the years. What do you think has separated you from the others?
It's a lot what you mentioned earlier. We've talked privately about this as well. I think a lot of people get into business initially because they want to make money, which is a good thing. That's what usually spurs entrepreneurship. But for me, what I found, I talk about this actually in the very first section of the book to kind of give people context, because I know sometimes people feel guilty about that as well. But I know for me, I was learning, I was growing, and there came a point in my life where no matter how much I kept learning, eventually you kind of stop. It's hard to keep progressing just by learning itself. And I had some big wins, I had successes, and it was I love celebrating them. But then the first time I started helping other people, I was hey, I'm gonna, this stuff I've learned, let me help you with it. And I'd help people, and they'd see their success. And I'm sure you're the same way. When you see someone else have success, it is a million times cooler than your own success. And for me, I got addicted to that. I'm okay, that was awesome. Who else can help, and how else can I help? And my whole focus shifted from how do I start a business, make money, to these people have messages. They've got things that they know that they can change other people's lives. And I might not be the world's fastest reader. I might not be someone who's good at personal development or finance or any of those things. I might not be the best at it. But if I can, my gifts, my tools, if I can help them to get their message out, man, how many more people can we impact? And so that's why I love working with entrepreneurs, because it's one entrepreneur can change hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people's lives, and it's so much fun.
What's been one of the biggest campaigns that you've run to give people a sense of what the economic opportunity is, and then I want to follow up and get into a little bit about the different types of expert businesses. But tell us the story of what's been one of the big surprises. I know the potato gun's where you started, but what's one of the big hits you've got? What kind of return did you get? Just to give people a sense of what's possible. And I remember you telling me how crazy you were over several of these stories. Well, give me one.
So many cool ones. So I'll share one of my favorite. They're a younger couple. They are, I think, 22, 23. They just got married, Brandon and Caitlin. In fact, when you spoke at our event, she was the one that had the Prada purse that you kind of teased.
Yes, I remember that, yes.
So she's the coolest couple, the newlywed couple. And the first time they met me, they messaged me, and they're like, we're completely broke. We have nothing. Someday we're going to be a success story. And I was like, all right, cool. And then a year later, they came to our event, and they came up to me, and they're like, hey, right now we're doing, I think it was $80,000 a month right now, helping women to transform their bodies through weight loss. And I was like, that's cool. And then they started going deeper and deeper into this. And one of my favorite things is they did a Facebook Live 2 months ago, following kind of the process we teach in this book. They did a Facebook Live and went live. And two things. Number one, that Facebook Live they did, they sold over $1 million worth of products, 22, 23-year-old couple. But number two, right now they're adding 500 women a day are coming into their programs, and they're taking these women's lives and radically transforming them. And the case studies are just insane. So for me, it's like the money's cool because us entrepreneurs want to know that, but like 500 women a day, every single day, are coming in like clockwork into their programs, and they're having this huge impact on people's health that it's like the coolest thing in the world to watch and to see.
Well, the crazy thing is so many people have beautiful ideas. I knew early in my career, my biggest thing was I had these skills, these abilities, some talents, certain things God gives you, and certain things you develop along the way. But I realized my ideas were going to die on my lips unless I learned how to market. I was not going to change millions of people's lives unless I could figure out how to do that as well. And mine was so much trial and error, and there was no internet per se. That's how ancient I am. So let's talk about the things that you've learned now. In your book, you talk about the two types of kind of expert businesses. For the people who don't want to be an expert also, but just want to grow their company. How would this work for them as well? So maybe you can give us those differentiations so people have an understanding of how to kind of look at this.
Yeah, definitely. So the first kind of expert business is one I think people are familiar with is, I look at you like you are the king of this, right? Like doing books and seminars and like position yourself as an expert. And that's like a big piece of this, which is really, really cool. And I think anybody who's got any kind of talent or specialized knowledge or something they're passionate about can do that kind of business. And you can make great money, you can serve people. But I know there's a lot of people that come to my world that are like, well, Russell, I don't want to do that. Like I own a software company or supplement company, or I'm a chiropractor, or whatever those things might be. And it's interesting. Like when I launched our software company, ClickFunnels, like it's a boring software company, and we're competing against other boring software companies. And but I was able to take all these principles we teach in here and kind of attach like a person to a software company. And we took it from no members to right now. Actually, today we passed 40,000 active members inside of ClickFunnels. I think one of the fastest growing non-VC backed startups in the world. And it's because these principles, like you take it and it takes any kind of business and lights it on fire. I've got a friend, Drew Canoli, who's got a supplement business, and he's selling green drinks. And it's like, that's a good business, but as soon as he took his personality and he followed the principles in the book and he wrapped it around it, it took off. And I'm not privy to share their numbers, but multiple seven figures year one out of the gate because of it. And like any business that you wrap that in fact, I've got a friend who's a financial planner, and there's how many financial planners in Boise, Idaho, where I'm at? There's 1,000 of them here. But people come and they will fly over like 30 states to get to him. They'll pay him 10 times more, and he does the exact same thing because he's positioned himself as this expert. And we understand that it's like, man, like you can charge more. You're no longer a commodity. People will come to you. You can serve people at a higher level. Like so many cool things come when you understand how to wrap these principles into any type of business. It doesn't just have to be an expert business.
Yeah. And I think, positioning as an expert, one of the things I love about what you do is you make sure the person is an expert. So, we use the word positioning. Positioning is part of marketing, but you really got to make sure you've got the content to deliver. And I think most people have it. They just don't know how to present it, like you said, in a structure and a style where they're able to build a brand, because that's how I built my brand. I built my brand by showing people I could deliver a result that no one else had delivered. And if you do that over and over again, you build your brand. So tell me, what's the pattern that you started to discover? You talk about this in the book, that every mass movement really starts with, I think it was 3 patterns, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. It's cool because when I was creating this book, and I'm just like you, like I learned this from you. I model everyone, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm building a software company. Who do I model? Who are the best out there? And I was looking at everything. Initially started with business. I look at like Apple and Steve Jobs. I'm like, what did he do? And I started looking at like Tesla and Elon Musk. And then I started taking a step back and I looked at politics and like, Like, what are the people that are winning doing versus the people that are losing? And then I took another step back and I started studying everything from the really negative, like cults and how they work, and then religion and everything in between. And it was cool as I was going deep in the study, and I know you've done this before, you're going through stuff, and all of a sudden, like, I started seeing this weird pattern. I was in a point of immersion where I was like, for 3 or 4 weeks just geeking out, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's this pattern. I was like, I started looking at, on one side, which, the negative side of things, like Hitler and the Nazi Party, and I saw, like, this is this pattern that he used. And I look over on the other side, Christ and Christianity, I see a pattern here, and I see Jobs did it, and everyone, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's this pattern. And what was cool is as soon as I identified the pattern, then I started looking at our company. I was like, okay, we're doing parts of this, or maybe 1 or 2 things, but now that I know it, how can we amplify it? What are the things we can do to make it better? And so we started doing all those pieces, and then and we test them, and then we see what would happen. So the book's kind of cool because it gives you, and I'll show you in a second, it shows you the strategy. Here's the 3 things they all have, but then it shows, here's the practical application. That what we did inside ClickFunnels, we did these 4 things, and that's what got us from 20,000 members to 30,000 within like a 3-month period of time. Like, what are those things? And so I'll show you guys. In my books, I'm a big doodler because that's how my brain works. But there's tons of sketches. Like, this is a sketch from this. So this right here, this are the 3 things that every mass movement from the beginning of time, all it's had. I'll kind of go through real quickly. Number 1 is all of them have some type of charismatic leader. And I know that sometimes we know this is like in expert businesses, but first time I mentioned this, I got on a podcast, and he was like, well, that's not true with real businesses, Russell. And I'm like, well, what about Steve Jobs? Or what about Apple? Who was their charismatic leader? And they're like, well, I guess they had one. And I mentioned 4 or 5 more, and they're like, okay, maybe all the good movements do have somebody that people can connect with.
Yeah. And
that's a big thing because it's hard to connect with just a brand. Longer term, you can do that, but initially, especially, it's a person that you connect with that gets you to want to follow. The number 2 thing in the pattern is all of them had like a future-based cause that they were taking people towards. And one of the coolest ways I found, I talk about this, I went through all the U.S. elections from the one that just happened all the way back to like George Bush, all the way back to George Washington. And what's interesting is I was able to find most of the campaign slogans on both the sides, like Republican or Democrat. And it didn't matter who won, what party, whatever, but the ones that won, all the candidates had like a very future-based cause. Think about Trump was, let's make America great again. And all the people that lost had a very present-based cause. Like Hillary had, I think hers, the 2 or 3 slogans I found hers, like I'm with her, and like very present-based things. You look back when Obama won, Obama was all about change, and Bush was. And then like it's interesting, and so I started realizing that. And so inside of our big mass movement we were trying to create, I realized like we need a future-based cause. Like what is that? So we created one, and then we figured out how to amplify it, and we show all the examples of how we've done that, and that gets people to want to come with you. And then the 3rd thing, and this is probably the least understood, but I think the most important, is every mass movement the leader offered their people a new opportunity, which is they didn't come and try to just help people become better, but they were like, look, this is a new opportunity. I wanted to.
How would you define? So a lot of people don't make that. I know it sounds simple, but how do you define a new opportunity in your mind?
Yeah, so
so many people take something that currently exists and they convert it into seemingly a new opportunity. I'm just curious, what's your definition is?
So for me, I look at like whatever customer we're trying to serve, right? They're coming to us and they want a result. So this is the result I want to get over here. And usually we're not the first person they came to. Like usually they've been trying to get this result for a while. And they're in some vehicle, and I like visualize it as a vehicle. They're in a car, they're in a vehicle, they're driving to get that result. And so what most people do in business is they come and they sell what I call an improvement offer. So they'll come and like, oh, that vehicle you're in. Well, it's like, let me step back. So an example, let's say you're in a weight loss. Let's say you want to lose weight. So the vehicle that you might be in, let's say it's the Atkins diet, or it could be whatever diet, right? And that's the vehicle, and they're in that thing. And so an improvement offer is coming back, and what most people do is like, hey, you're in this thing, I'm going to make that experience better for you, and we're gonna whatever. They try to make it better. But the hard thing is that someone knows what that experience is like. They're in this vehicle trying to get the result, and if they're not happy, like they're not happiness. No matter how hard we try to make that process better, it's going to be, you're always going to have tons of friction. Whereas if I come and say, look,
they're going to compare you to them even if you're different.
Yeah, exactly. So if I can come and I can create an actual new opportunity and say, look, get out of that vehicle you're in, getting that result. Come over to this vehicle. It's completely different. It's a new opportunity. This is what's going to take you over here. That's how it causes these huge changes. One of my favorites, a friend you and I both have, Dave Asprey. He came in with his movement. He's like, look, you're going to eat high fat, put butter in your coffee, all sorts of things. And people are like, what in the world? You would have heard that description before. You told him he was nuts. The marketing did on that was so genius. Oh, so brilliant. And everyone's jumping from their vehicles coming in here because it's like, I don't know what they're doing, but that sounds way better. And they come over, and he's built a huge mass movement, huge company, supplement company, retail stores, like everything based on this new opportunity he provided people, and it was brilliant, as you know. Tell us about the Epiphany Bridge, and how can you use that concept to sell just about anything without actually selling anything. Okay, I actually got a little whiteboard for you to show this. So this is, did my homework prepared for today. So this is funny. Most people, if they try to sell you something, they come to you and they try to pitch you logically on the thing that like why they believe in their thing. And so I drew this out one day, and like this has been huge for me and for everyone that goes through my coaching stuff, is this thing called Epiphany Bridge. So what happens is like, this is us right here, right? And we're living our normal life. Like this, I could use this as my example with you. Before I met you, before I started going your things, like life was good, right? I thought everything was perfect, and I was introduced to you, and I had this like epiphany where it's like, oh my gosh, like things, like life is good, but like I'm seeing things in black and white. Now things are colorful, right? And like it changed, for me it was huge. And so I went on this journey where I went on this big epiphany bridge, and what happens is we come over here to this side of the bridge, and what happens over here is we start studying, we start learning, we start geeking out. And so like, you know, I went to all your events, I read all your books multiple times, your courses, and like for you, like I'm in the Tony world, right? I understand your language patterns. And then I go to like my wife, and I'm like, I'm so excited to tell her, and I learned all this stuff. And the first thing that we all do is we jump over here, and this is techno babble. We jump and we start trying to logically convince the people around us, like logically, like, oh yeah, you learned this thing, and we spew out this techno babble. And what happens is that people hear that techno babble and they freak out, and they're like, oh, and they run away, right? And what we kind of figured out is the reason why, like, and this is true in any business, right? The reason why everyone listening is the reason why you do what you do is something happened. You were living a normal life. Something happened that gave you this epiphany of like, wow, and it changed your perspective and your mindset. You went on this journey. You geeked out. You logically started convincing yourself of it. And then when you try to share it with others, that's when the issues happen. So what we have to do, if we want to sell somebody something, we have to come back to this thing. We have to remember, like, what was the emotional experience that we had that gave us that big epiphany? And if you understand that emotional experience, then that's how you sell someone. I come back and I tell a story, and when I tell that story, then my goal is to get people to have the same epiphany that I had. If they have that epiphany, then I don't have to sell them anything. They have that epiphany, like, wow, that's true, and then they'll go sell themselves logically all day long. I just have to come back here, remember the experience I had, and become really good at telling it. And in the book, you know, it's not just like telling a story. I walk through like the process and the scripts and how to control their state. This is a huge thing I learned from you, because how many people tell a story, and like one person tells a story and of what something happened, and you're like, okay, cool, and you're like, no, like you try to explain it 3 or 4 times, and finally you say like, oh man, I guess you had to be there. If you were there, you would have experienced it. Like if you learn how to tell stories the right way, and you control the way you tell the story, you control their state so that they get in the same state that you were in when you had that epiphany. If you can do that the right way, then they'll have the same epiphany you had, and then like I said, they'll sell themselves. And so this book is all about that. Like, how do you tell the stories in the right way that get people in the right state, that get them excited about your ideas, your concepts, and then get them to actually take action and do the thing that you need them to do to get the result that they want. And so for me, like the biggest thing I've always seen people struggle with, they try to get into business or try to sell their advice and things like that, is they get into this like used car salesman mode of trying to like learn how to close people. And I'm like, no, it's not closing. Like, what was it that got you fired up? If you can remember that moment and you get really good at telling that story, then they'll feel that and they'll get fired up too. And like that's the key. And so we understand that, and this book is all about that.
Well, leadership, as you know, leadership's all about transferring emotion, because logic doesn't get us to take action. There's not enough juice in the logic, right? We only have enough logic to justify an emotional decision. And you know what? One of the things I think that you've done consistently, I think it's the people sense your authenticity because you come back to that emotional bridge. When you're talking about it right now, I can feel your passion, excitement like it was yesterday. And, you know, for a decade plus, the million people you've been helping, business owners, it's all come, I really believe, because you not only have the goods and the tools, but you can get the emotion there to follow through. It's like I always say to people, you know, where were you on 9/11? You remember the moment where you were. People remember the moment, they remember where they were, they remember who was nearby, they see the image. I go, where were you on 8/11? And nobody knows, right? Because emotion, you know, information without emotion is just really not retained. It's information with it. And if you don't have that as the marketer, as the teacher, as the trainer, as the expert, it's going to go nowhere. Listen, I promised to keep this tight for you for 20 minutes. I'm already over a little bit. Where do people get your book? And I know you're making a really special offer for people, and I want to get it out to as many people as possible. My goal is not only people who want to build cash flow, but again, so many business owners need new ways to penetrate the marketplace. So I want you to tell me that, but I want to ask you one last question before I even go a little over time. What do you think is the biggest misconception about marketing today? And what do people, if they only did one thing to change their marketing for the better, what would it be?
I think the biggest misconception is that people, and this comes down to everything I learned from you. So it's people are so tied to their significance that when they try to sell themselves, their business, that they try to posture themselves all the time, and the posturing like deflects people, and it makes you feel, I don't know what it is, the more vulnerable you get, the better it is. Like when people, we have our high-end coaching programs, people ask, how do you sell that, Russell? And like, I show a 10-minute video of me telling my story with my wife, and we're trying to have twins, and I cry 3 or 4 times in it, and I tell that story. I'm super vulnerable, and people connect with me, and then they follow me. And like, it's about connection and being vulnerable. That's what gets people to draw into. It's not significance and stature. It's vulnerability, and that's what gets people in. And that works for any business. I had a friend who's a chiropractor. I was trying to help him, and it was funny because he's trying to sell like all the other chiropractors, talk about like, you know, their fees and this and all this stuff, and how the adjustment and alignment, all this technical stuff. And I kept asking him, finally one day I was like, why are you a chiropractor? And he told me this amazing story about his wife got in a car wreck, and he was in dental school at the time, and she got injured really, really bad, and took her to a medical doctor in a couple of places, and nothing helped. And finally he took her to a chiropractor, and he adjusted her and changed her. She literally changed her life. And he loved it so much he dropped out of dental school, and then he went and he became a chiropractor. Now he just loves it. And so we got a video of him telling that story. That emotion, I got chills just telling it again. Told that story, put it on Facebook, and his practice that was struggling as he was trying to be a salesperson blew up overnight as he started sharing his story and becoming vulnerable with people. And I think that that's the future of marketing. It used to be slick sales letters, good copy, all that kind of stuff. That's what worked before. Today, like we're in a society, like, as people are watching your video, they're Googling your name and Facebooking you and doing everything. And if you're not vulnerable all times and being yourself all the time, like it's too easy to not know. And it's all about just that connection. That's what gets people. That's marketing today. That's where it's going.
That's what I love about you, brother. I mean, you're the real thing. It's so rare, unfortunately. And as you know, the more you try to prove that you're, the best, and try to convince people and try to be significant, the more they want to prove they're more significant than you. So you've never done that. I love that you share openly everything, your failures, successes, but the level of success you generated is second to none. I really want people to get your book. So what's your offer for them so they can go pick that up?
Cool. So I pre-bought a whole bunch of copies of this during our launch, and so I've already paid for the book, and I shipped them to Boise. Now they're in a warehouse in Boise, and we got to ship them to you. So I think it's in the U.S. it's $7.95. It's international. I think it's $14.95, but we'll ship it out to you. And basically, I want people to read this. The thing I tell everyone, like, I believe this book will change your life, but like more importantly, it's going to give you the tools you need to help change other people's lives. And that's the gift I have for everybody. I hope you guys read this book and you love it. And I want to thank you for letting me share this with your audience, and just appreciate you. You've changed my life, my wife's life, and half our staff, everyone here. So we're so grateful for you.
Well, I want to support you any way I can, buddy, because you give tools that people desperately need. And if you're out there watching right now, listen, all business is innovation in marketing, right? Innovation really means finding a better way to meet your clients' needs. You can't just meet them. You got to constantly find a new way to meet them, or people get bored or they get frustrated. I always tell people, satisfied customers go away, raving fans stay. So you got to do that. But you also then, with that innovation, you have the best innovation in the world. If you don't market effectively, if you don't get people to want you to do what you have to do, if you don't get them to seek you out, then you're never going to have the impact that you really want. So Russell's got some great tools. And Russell, I'm going to reach back out to the conversation. Let's see if we get you out to Business Mastery to maybe add some more details to this for people as well. But please go get his book, and where do they go to get the book?
expertsecrets.com/Tony is a special link we set up for you guys. So expertsecrets.com/Tony.
Great. I love you, brother. Great to be with you. Hope a lot of people go grab this book and change their business and change their life, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
God bless, brother. Bye-bye.